In times of trauma and adversity, we must create space for connection by sharing a story of hope. Welcome to Humans of Hope, Inspiring Stories, hosted by Kerry Atherton. This podcast shares inspiring stories of individuals who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger, offering hope and resilience to listeners all over the world. Join Kerry, the founder of Stories of Hope Worldwide, every week to hear these remarkable journeys and find the strength to overcome your adversity. Now, let's listen in to this week's conversation.
I'm Kerry Atherton and I'm your host, and today's guest is Hayley Lohmeyer. Today we're going to be talking about a very sensitive topic, suicide. Hayley was just 12 years old when her dad ended his life by suicide. Hi Hayley, welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Such an important topic, and today I really want to focus on the impact that suicide has on family members that are left behind. But more importantly, I want to talk about your story of hope as well. I recently, it was a while ago now, that I was sharing with a mum who came to me and was expressing that she was suicidal. And I actually shared your story with her. That was probably around 4 years ago now. And I caught up with her yesterday and she was experiencing that she's still struggling with some dark days. And I asked her the question, I said, "Are you thinking of suicide?" And she said, "No." She said, "The story you told me about that young girl saved my life."
No way.
She said, "Because of that story you told me and the impact that it had on her, I would never do that and leave my children in that position."
Wow.
So I thought, and how ironic that I had already set up to talk to you today about this topic.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
That's okay. Recently, there's a rise in male suicide over the last couple of months. And so it's really a topic that I want to bring some light to today. But, something that I have actually had clients say to me too that are feeling that way is, I think my family will be better off without me. And, they'll recover. And it's something I think that people tell themselves to make it okay to check out. But it's very much not the case, is it? The family members are not okay.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So you were 12 years old.
Yeah. And I remember being told, the policeman came I was actually at a friend's house the night that he ended his life. So in some ways I was, protected from actually seeing that, which my brother experienced. My brother was the one that found him.
And how old was he, Hayley, at the time?
10 years old. Yeah, so that's devastating in and of itself. But yeah, I was at a friend's house and I remember the police coming to the door and saying, "Yeah, your dad's committed suicide." And at that age I wasn't even sure, what does that exactly mean? Like what's happened? What does suicide mean? Grappling with what's happened and the reality of that he'd taken his own life. So it just, the days and weeks and months after, I think it just felt like a nightmare. You thought, am I going to wake up from this nightmare? But then you wake up the next day and you're like, no, this is real life. It's just so incredibly shocking. Something that you never, would imagine would happen. And with Dad, there was nothing that we noticed was super unusual at that time about his behavior. Like looking back now, I was young, but I see a bit clearer, he wasn't doing well. You'd see him just sort of looking out the window, sort of staring into space, not as present as he would usually be, maybe a little bit more sort of snappy. Like he was a very kind, patient man, couldn't fault him. But I remember, in the week leading up to his suicide, he sort of surprised me, like one of his responses was a bit snappier. He was a little bit angrier than he would usually get in a certain situation. So yeah, looking back, I have different memories of like, oh, okay, if I was a bit older, I might have, tried to clue in. But you're not really thinking that that's where people are at to ask.
Oh, no, and especially at 12 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
You wouldn't have a clue, would you? I mean, you might notice if your parents are a bit sad or, like you said, a bit more snappy or something like that, but them ending their life is the furthest thing from your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and we looked back on he'd written some diaries throughout that time, and I looked back and, that gave us a little bit more insight with his work. There was a lot of rain, and you could see just the desperation in some of his writing. Rain again, have lots of bills, no work. Yeah, so you could see that internally, like through his writing, there must have been a lot of stress and pressure and things building. Yeah.
And what did he do for a living?
He was a concreter.
Okay.
Yeah, and a landscaper. And so, yeah, he'd started his own business there. And I guess the rain just meant that he couldn't work and he had to keep putting it off and off. So,
And how old was he, Hayley, when his life ended?
he would have been 42. Yeah.
Right. Wow, so young.
Yeah. Yeah. Very young.
So what happened to you after that? Because I think I met you when you were maybe 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
But your life really started to spiral, didn't it, after that?
Yeah. Yeah. Particularly at that point when I met you, Kerry, I think I was pretty close to rock bottom there, like getting quite close. Yeah, I think the following year, so I was 12. The immediate years, you have a lot of support, extended family try and come around, and friends, come around. Well, for us, they came around us, and that I think was helpful in those few years following. But after some time, people move on with their lives, and people move on from the loss of that person. And maybe it was a significant loss for our friends and family, of course. But I found that, I was like, oh, I still feel so much pain, and it's still really tough for me, but it feels like everyone else is, now moving on with their lives.
You hear that often with grief.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when I came to the age of about 16, 15, 16, I found that pain was still very real, still there. And I guess the way that I'd seen people cope with pain in the past was through alcohol. That had been modeled in different ways. And so, yeah, I just naturally started wanting to experiment with alcohol and started realizing that, it does take away the pain for a little bit. And so had I've kept going down that path, it would have been a very different story, definitely. So, yeah, definitely started sort of spiraling downhill around the age of 16 when I'd started, experimenting with alcohol and realizing that it helped for a little bit. But then, feeling the guilt and the shame the next day and, realizing like I don't want this to be my life. But yeah, that definitely I wasn't heading in a great direction there.
So I remember how I met you. My daughter actually reached out to me and said, Mum, I've got a friend, who's really struggling. Had you reached out and sought help yourself prior to that?
Not that I can specifically remember. I remember sharing with close friends about, the struggles and things that I had, and, had some families that sort of would, offer for me to come and hang out or stay with them at different times, which was amazing and a bit of a great support. But yeah, in terms of reaching out, I don't think I quite knew how to do that or how to ask for help or how to even, put words to where I was at.
Yeah. And when you're struggling with substances, I mean, I see this all the time with people who are, and there's a real shame attached. They're relying on alcohol or substances to get through.
Mm.
So that kind of keeps people in the dark, doesn't it? The shame in itself keeps people from reaching out for help.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't have wanted to have, gone and admitted that, at such a young age, I was already finding that this was a coping strategy and something that was, really struggling with not being able to control the amount of alcohol that I was drinking as a 16-year-old. Looking back, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, and that was me too at 16. And I guess, I was trying to escape from pain also, and I didn't want to admit that I had a problem because alcohol had become my best friend.
Mm.
And it was at the time, I thought that it was my only way out, my only form of escaping from the pain.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be admitting then that I had a problem with it, although everyone around me could see that I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So when you did get help, and I know I played a very small part in that, but
a very large part.
But what did the help look like? Because there'll be people of all ages watching this today. There'll be kids, whose parents have suicided and have gone down the path that you've gone down, because we know too that with all the training that we do in the mental health space, that addictions all addictions, there's a trauma link there. Mm-hmm. And there'll be many, many young people that will turn to alcohol and substances after the suicide of their parent. What did the help look like for you?
So I think it looked different at different stages, but at that point, I'd kind of established a bit of a faith, which was a bit undergirding, and I found that was quite helpful, having that belief in God and, that there is greater hope and, someone else out there who loves me. But I think at the time, I also needed to see that help in the form of like a person.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, I had, extended family were coming around me at different times, which I think was good. And, inviting me into their families. And that would sometimes look like families, taking me under their wing for months, and they would create a space in their home for me to come and be a part of their family, knowing that was creating a safe place for me. And that was incredible. So I probably had 3 different families do that, just really open up their homes and their families for me to have a place. And that was really impacting, seeing, family life can look different to what I've experienced, or, just seeing, even fathers in different roles, and after the loss of my dad. So that was helpful. And then I remember going out for coffee with you, and you sat down and you just said, I can't remember the question, but it was something along the lines of like, do you just really feel like you need someone to help you? And I remember that resonated so deeply. And I was like, it was like this internal yes, like I just need help. Like I need support. I don't know how to move forward. And it just felt like it was the perfect time for me to meet you. And wow, like the change in my life, after being able to meet you and hear your story. And I think you took me along to Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was huge for me, like going and seeing this group of people, that had talked about, so many years of their lives being wasted to alcoholism. It was just this huge wake-up call, like, Hayley, like, turn around, don't keep going in this direction. Honestly, like that was incredibly life-changing for me to realize that, to see it in the flesh, like, you chose to turn away from alcoholism, and you had that choice and you lived that out. And then, seeing your life now and realizing that for me, like, I have a choice. Like, I don't have to do what's been modeled to me, and I don't have to live as a victim of my pain and my past, but I have a choice to make about, my future, and I need to make it. No one's gonna make that choice for me. And so, yeah, I think that was a huge, huge turning point. Just having someone there in the flesh to say, practically, this is how you can move forward into a better future.
I love that. And something that I've always felt that God wants me to look after is the orphans and the widows. And at the time, I know that you had many struggles going on, and we won't talk about all of those today, but, I just really felt that you were somebody that really had nobody that really, be 100% vulnerable and open with. that was why I stepped in, because I knew what you were going through, you know, and I say this all the time with Stories of Hope, that there's nobody greater to bring hope to the person still on the journey than the person that's come out the other side.
That's right. Yeah, it's so true.
And, you know, sometimes we think in life too, don't we? And I want to get on to talk about the amazing work that, you know, you're doing today and the countless lives that you've changed. But sometimes we can often think that we help people, but we don't know if we actually make an impact or make a difference. And it still brings tears to my eyes today, that letter, that email or letter that you sent me.
Yeah.
And I often recall this, you know, I've spoken about this letter at Stories of Hope because I think everybody has a story. Everybody has come through something. And if people would just realise the power of the one thing that they've come out of, they would be able to change someone else's life. And I hope I can get through what I want to say without being a blubbering mess on the podcast. But it's good to show emotion.
Yeah.
When you said to me that you sent me this email or letter, and you said that you told me about what you're doing today and that you've started, you know, these schools for at-risk kids all around the world and everything. And you said, because you helped me, I've been able to change and go on to help these countless other people, you know, and it just impacted me so much about what a ripple effect just one kind act can have.
Right.
And that when we help one person, we just don't know what life changer that person's going to go on to be. And that really helped me develop the mindset for Stories of Hope, that it's all about the ones. That it doesn't matter how many people turn up to an event or how many people hear the story. If it can change one person's life, then it's worth sharing the story.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Let's hear more now about what was your greatest light bulb moment, and then how did your life move forward? And I want you to tell us about what you've been doing since then.
Light bulb moment. Yeah. I think there's been a few like moments where I think I mentioned before, like just realizing that, you know, when things happen to you that, you know, you can't control and they're very painful, I think it can be easy to, you know, it's hard, I guess, to walk out of that pain at times. And I know for a while, like, you know, after my dad's suicide, it felt like, when will the dark days end? Like, will light come again? And I think as the years went on, you know, and through amazing people that I'd met, like you and other families and my faith, and, you know, there's all these different dynamics, but just realizing that the days do get brighter, that light does come again, and, you know, you do experience joy again. And I think when I was 18, I went off to WA to be a part of this Christian missions organization. And, you know, a part of that was traveling overseas and doing like an outreach portion. And I remember as an 18-year-old, we arrived in Nepal, and we were on a bus and just driving through the streets of Nepal. And I remember just looking out the window and just being so amazed and shocked that life like this could exist, because I'd never seen anything like it. It was so different from life at home. But I think the most amazing thing to see was people and kids having very, very little, you know, not much at all, but still, you know, just seeing them carry so much joy and like their smiles, and, you know, they had joy even though they had so little. And I think as a young person, that really changed my perspective of like, you know, joy can exist in the midst of pain, or like, you know, there's still, you know, you can still have joy even though you have little, or even though you've walked through pain or difficulty. And I think that was a big, big moment for me, very, very eye-opening. But also, yeah, realizing that I didn't have to stay in that pain, that I could make a choice to have a different life for myself and then the generations that would come after me, and really desiring to see change for myself, and to that my children wouldn't have to witness the things that I witnessed. and looking forward to, okay, what are the choices that I can make today to see that happen. And really, really being empowered by the choice that I had to walk my own, my own path and not have to follow in the footsteps of others. I found that to be really empowering and freeing as well.
We have a choice, don't we? When we go, everybody goes through pain, and some people experience more trauma than others. But the difference between someone who remains in a victim mentality is the person that is able to go and deal with that pain and heal from that pain, and then step out of that, step out of the past and step towards a greater future.
That's right.
And become victorious over their pain. And we all do have that choice. I know it's much harder for some people than others, and especially people that feel like they have no support. So many organisations and support networks out there now that everyone should have somebody to reach out to.
Yeah, and that's so important. People along the way have just played such a key role, and to have someone in front of you that you can talk with and ask questions, and I want to get here, but I don't know how to get here, and having someone help navigate that is very important. Yeah.
So can you tell us about these schools for at-risk kids that you started?
Yeah, so with this organisation that I joined, Youth with a Mission, I was invited to be involved in their children at risk schools. So for about 5 years or so, I was helping to facilitate these schools where we'd invite, students would come to be equipped in character skills and knowledge to then be able to reach out to vulnerable children, both locally but also globally. And so I had the privilege of seeing these students trained and equipped and then going with them to different nations. So we had the privilege of working with street children in Ethiopia, orphans in India, children that had been rescued from trafficking in Indonesia, and many other vulnerable children and families in different nations. And then also locally in Perth, we were able to start up an after school program where kids could come, and where home wasn't necessarily a safe place to go. They would come after school and have opportunity to learn about God, but also do arts, crafts, sports, different activities, learn music. Just really wanted to give them opportunities to be a child and to engage in those creative outlets. And, for me, I think having that safe place was so important, and having that one person to come alongside and support was just so important for me. So, I really had a deep desire to see other children impacted by, being that one person or providing that safe place that so many had provided for me. So it's been a real privilege. And then also not just to meet the children, sometimes they'd bring their families along. So we get, the opportunity to encourage and support single mums or, mums that are trying to really come out of addiction. And it's amazing, people just really needing someone to listen to them, share about their struggles. And sometimes the simplest thing of listening to someone's story can be, make them feel like they're not as alone as they feel they are.
Yeah, and make them feel seen and heard. That is so important, isn't it? You mentioned the kids that have come out of trafficking. The one thing that you think was the greatest tool that helped them, I don't know if you'd ever recover from that, but the one thing that actually helped them move forward. What was the greatest thing that helped them move forward?
Yeah, they were brought into a very safe environment where they had, a lot of different, like, multifaceted teams come in and support them through, like, trauma counseling and, bringing them back into a bit of normality of life schedule. So I don't know if I could say like the one specific thing, but I think as people come together,
Connection.
to create that, that support for them. Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, that's great. So what's life like today? Because I know, I don't want to steal you talking about this, but I know that you met a wonderful guy And that was one of my happiest days when I, found out that you'd met Josh. You've got 2 children today. So tell us what life's like today for you.
Yeah. So, Josh is amazing. I'm really, really blessed to do life with him. He's a great hubby, great dad. And yeah, it was such a blessing to be able to meet him and journey with him. He's very patient with me and, my moments. He's very calm, cool and collected. And I definitely needed a man like that. And he's just amazing with my family and, in the midst of the challenges that are there, he takes it very well. So I'm really, really grateful for him. Yeah, we have two boys. So we have a 5-year-old and he'll be 5 in July, and then a 1-year-old little Luca. And so they're wonderful. They keep us busy for sure. And so Josh, his passion is filmmaking. So he makes films with communities for communities at the moment, really looking at what are some of the issues in different communities and drawing actors from those communities to create a film that really speaks into those issues, whether it be suicide, addiction, different things like that. So he has a real passion for that. So we're taking this year out of what we usually do with the organisation that I was talking for, so that Josh can be further equipped and trained in the area of filmmaking. And I am enjoying being more of a full-time mum.
Oh, that's great.
Such a privilege, to be able to invest in these 2 boys.
Doing a fair bit of work, or has done, am I correct, with indigenous communities?
Yeah. So he has a focus at the moment on indigenous communities. It was a bit challenging throughout COVID. A lot of the communities were closed, so we weren't able to continue with some of the vision that he had, but we're hoping to be able to head back into those communities soon over in WA and continue on with those stories.
Hales, what is your message? This is back to a serious note now. What is your message for any parent out there who feels like life's become so hopeless that they can't go on and they may be contemplating suicide? As a child of someone who's suicided, what is your message for them?
I would say as fast as you can, go and get help, talk to someone. You might have this, possibly things seem so overwhelming that you lose sight of your value and the important role that you have in life, in your child's life, in, your partner's life. But, that's just not true. And I would just encourage anyone who's contemplating that to talk to someone, to seek out help, to do whatever you can to get that help that you need, because it's, the effects are devastating and you will be missed. 20 years, it's been 20 years since my dad passed away, and the pain's definitely there's been healing, but, the pain's not gone. There's still, I think about him and, I still feel very deeply sad that, he was in a position where he felt he had to make that choice. And if I could rewind the clock and do anything that I could as a child to stop that, of course I would. But I'd just encourage anyone thinking about that to do whatever you can to find another way out.
Such powerful words, Hayley. And he's missed out on so much, hasn't he? He's missed out on seeing your children and being a grandfather, and
that's
people
right.
Momentarily, don't they? They don't think long term that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
That's right. Yeah, it's those moments, my 18th birthday, when I had my children when they were born, and my wedding day, those days are very, they're joyful days, but there's always that sorrow of, this is what he's missed out on, and how amazing would it be, as a granddad, as being able to witness these different events. Yeah.
I'll never forget the day that I gave you some piano lessons and asked you what song you wanted to learn, and it was your dad's favourite song from the Beatles.
Yeah.
And every time I hear that song, I think of that moment and think of, you both.
Yeah, it's really special.
So, Hayley, as we are finishing up now, I ask everybody this question, and it's a big question, but what's your message for the world?
Yeah, it is a big question. Wow. Yeah, it's a good one. We're in an interesting season in our lives where, we're looking back and realizing how quickly life is passing, and just feeling like we need to embrace each day and live life to our best ability, the best we can each day, and stop sort of wasting time. I guess focusing on things that aren't important, but really, focusing on what's important in life, and moving in that direction. So I guess the message would be to live each day, make the most of each day, and live it to the best of your ability. Don't be held back by fears or your insecurities, but make the most of those opportunities and step out. You just, like you're saying, you don't know the impact that your life can have on someone else. And so whether it's that, that word of kindness, or that simple act of service on the street, on the road, you just don't know the impact that the small things can have. So I just say,
love life, love people, hey?
Yeah, it's a good summary.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I love you heaps. And it's been so great talking today about a topic that is so close to both of our hearts, and about bringing some hope as well to the people out there that are listening. So, Hayley, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Humans of Hope Inspiring Stories with Kerry Atherton. If this conversation helped you, please consider sharing the podcast with a friend, or leave a rating and review on your podcast player. Thank you to Matthew Bliss for podcast production and consultation, and to Kintsugi Heroes for making this podcast possible. If you'd like to find out more about Kerry Atherton, head to storiesofhope.com.au, where you can purchase her books or find out where her next event is taking place. Check the show notes for links and information about our guest in this episode. And remember, you don't have to walk your path alone.